I could feel every eye in the room on me as I raised my champagne glass beneath the golden lights of the Bayview Hall in Delaware. The orchestra played softly in the background. The air smelled of vanilla candles and expensive perfume. Guests were clinking glasses, laughing, and celebrating the end of my career. After 40 years of building my company from scratch and selling it for $23 million, I was supposed to feel proud, grateful, fulfilled. Instead, I was staring at one thing. A hand. My son-in-law, Vincent. He stood just 2 feet away beside the drink table, pretending to fix his tie, but his hand was not adjusting anything. It was hovering over my untouched glass. I watched his fingers pinch a tiny white object between them. He dropped it swiftly into the bubbling champagne, stirred it with a cocktail stick, and then placed the glass back exactly where it had been. He glanced around. He thought nobody had seen him, but I had. My smile remained frozen in place. My pulse throbbed against my ribs. My daughter Joy walked toward me, beaming proudly as if this was the happiest night of her life. She had no idea what I had just witnessed, or perhaps she did. I reached for the glass Vincent had prepared for me. Then, without a word, I switched it with the one beside it and stepped forward for my toast. I lifted the drink to my lips, but I did not sip. I only watched. Vincent's father, Gerald, standing directly opposite me, downed his glass in one eager gulp. 10 seconds later, his shoulders stiffened. His hand went to his chest. His eyes bulged wide in horror. Then he collapsed onto the polished floor. Screams erupted. Someone shouted to call an ambulance. Vincent dropped to his knees beside his father, pretending to panic. But I saw it. That flicker in his eyes. That moment of confusion. He was not shocked because someone had been poisoned. He was shocked because it was not me. And that was the moment I knew someone I loved had planned my death. And I intended to find out exactly who before they tried again. Before I go any further, I want to thank every loyal subscriber who has been following my journey. You have given me the courage to speak my truth. And to every new listener, welcome. I cannot wait to have you join this family. Your likes and comments are what help this channel grow, so please let me know. What would you do if you saw someone trying to poison you? Now let me take you back to the moment everything truly began. The retirement party had been Joy's idea. She wanted something grand, something elegant. She called it a new chapter celebration, but I sensed something else beneath her excitement. A strange intensity, a glow in her eyes that I could not place. I brushed it off as happiness. Joy married Vincent 5 years ago. He was a financial advisor, charming, respectable, too polished for my taste. There was something about his smile that never reached his eyes, but I tolerated him for Joy's sake. He had always been overly interested in my business, asking questions about my assets, my will, my investments. I assumed it was professional curiosity. Now I knew better. As Gerald lay motionless on the floor and paramedics rushed in, I stood silently in the chaos. I did not cry. I did not shout. I only watched Joy and Vincent. Watched how they reacted, separately. Watched how they avoided looking at me, because I understood something very important in that moment. Gerald was never meant to die. I was. And if that was true, then Joy might not be my daughter anymore. She might be my enemy. But I was not going to confront her. Not yet. Because I needed proof. I needed answers. And I needed to know just how far my own child was willing to go. What I discovered next made me wish the poison had worked.
The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the untouched breakfast on my plate. The smell of scrambled eggs and buttered toast filled the room, but I tasted nothing. All I could see was Vincent's hand dropping poison into my champagne. All I could hear was Gerald's body hitting the floor. The news reported it as a tragic medical collapse. The police called it a suspected heart attack, but I called it attempted murder. And I was the intended victim. I dialed a number I had been saving for years, a name I hoped I would never need. Franklin Pierce, private investigator, former state police detective. He answered with a gruff voice, and I wasted no time. "There was an attempted poisoning last night," I said. "I need to know who supplied it. I need to know who helped, and I need to know if my daughter was involved." There was a pause. "Understood," he replied. "Send me everything you remember. I will start immediately." As soon as I ended the call, I heard footsteps behind me. Joy. She entered the kitchen with eyes still red from crying. She hugged herself as if she wanted comfort. "Mother, are you all right?" She used the word mother. She only did that when she wanted something. I studied her carefully. Her hair was perfectly brushed. No trembling, no real shock. She was grieving enough to appear innocent, but not enough to be truly devastated. "I am fine," I replied. "How is Vincent?" "He is distraught. He blames himself. He thinks his father might still be alive if he had reacted sooner." A fascinating lie. He had reacted instantly. He had leapt to his father before anyone else had moved, almost as if he knew exactly what was happening. Joy reached out and squeezed my hand. "I know this is horrible timing, but I spoke with Vincent last night. We think it would be best if you moved in with us for a while. You should not be alone." Her grip tightened. Her voice remained gentle, but her eyes were measuring me, calculating. I leaned forward with a soft smile. "That is very thoughtful," I said. "I will consider it." But inside, I made a vow. I would rather sleep in a grave than under their roof. Franklin worked fast. Within 48 hours, he called me back. He said, "I traced a purchase of a restricted chemical. The order was placed under a fake name, but the security cameras? Guess who walked out with the package?" "Vincent," I whispered. "And your daughter was with him," Franklin added. The room began to spin, but I remained seated, silent, cold. He continued, "There's more. I accessed financial records. Your name is attached to several new life insurance policies, multi-million-dollar payouts. If you die, Vincent is the beneficiary. Not Joy, not anyone else. Him." I pressed my hand against my chest to steady my breathing. My own daughter had signed off on my death? My own son-in-law had planned to cash it in. But Franklin was not finished. There are also early drafts of forged documents, wills, property transfers. Someone is preparing to erase you before you die. For a long time, I said nothing. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "Can you prove it?" he said. "Yes, but there is something you should hear first." He played an audio file. It was recorded in a car. Joy's voice came through softly. "Once she's gone, everything changes." Vincent replied with a laugh. "Then let us hurry it up." I placed my hand slowly over my lips to hold back the scream climbing up my throat. My daughter wanted me dead, my own flesh and blood. But I did not cry. I did not collapse. I did not lose control. I turned to Franklin and spoke with steady calm. "Gather every file, every recording, every document, and prepare yourself." He hesitated.
For what? He asked. I stared at the wall in front of me as my voice hardened. For war. But I could not simply expose them. That would have been too merciful. I needed them to confess. I needed them to choke on their own plans. And so I set the stage for my final performance. What happened next would make even the devil step back in fear. I spent the next week rehearsing my role. The role of a clueless, aging woman too trusting to suspect danger. I called Joy and invited her and Vincent to a private dinner at my estate. I told them I had been feeling lonely, fragile, vulnerable. I told them I wanted to discuss my future living arrangements. Their reaction told me everything I needed to know. They were delighted. Too delighted. Joy said she would arrange everything herself. She insisted on bringing the food. She offered to handle the wine. She even suggested inviting a few trusted witnesses so the conversation would feel official. She was not planning a dinner. She was planning my execution. Perfect. But I could not simply expose them. That would have been too merciful. I needed them to confess. I needed them to choke on their own plans. And so I set the stage for my final performance. What happened next would make even the devil step back in fear. I spent the next week rehearsing my role. The role of a clueless, aging woman too trusting to suspect danger. I called Joy and invited her and Vincent to a private dinner at my estate. I told them I had been feeling lonely, fragile, vulnerable. I told them I wanted to discuss my future living arrangements. Their reaction told me everything I needed to know. They were delighted. Too delighted. Joy said she would arrange everything herself. She insisted on bringing the food. She offered to handle the wine. She even suggested inviting a few trusted witnesses so the conversation would feel official. She was not planning a dinner. She was planning my execution. Perfect. Before they arrived, I met with my attorney, Evelyn Grant, a woman whose smile could charm a billionaire while her mind quietly dismantled his empire. I need this to be airtight, I told her. Not only must they incriminate themselves, but they must do it willingly. Evelyn nodded. Then we give them what they want most, control. She placed a stack of papers on my desk. A fake will, a fake deed transfer, a fake medical directive giving Joy authority over my life support. They will believe it is real, and they will expose themselves trying to secure it. Franklin, the private investigator, had already installed hidden microphones in every room. There were cameras behind every decorative sculpture. Even the flowers in the dining room carried audio transmitters inside their stems. Every breath spoken within those walls would be immortalized. And the best part? They had no idea. When Joy and Vincent arrived, they came dressed in soft, sympathetic colors. Joy wore a pale pink dress. Vincent wore a navy suit without a tie, trying to appear relaxed. They greeted me with hugs that lingered too long, like snakes coiling before the strike. We sat at the candlelit table. The room smelled of rosemary chicken and lemon butter sauce. Soft music played from hidden speakers. I let my hands tremble slightly as I spoke. I have been doing a lot of thinking. I am not getting any younger. I need someone to take care of things when I eventually pass. Joy reached for my hand with theatrical tenderness. You know we love you. We want the best for you. Exactly. So I have decided to transfer certain responsibilities early, just to make things easier. I slid the stack of fake documents across the table toward Vincent. His eyes lit up like a gambler spotting a winning hand. He barely tried to hide it. "This is very wise," he said slowly, trying not to sound too eager. Joy added, "Mother, you will not regret this. We will handle everything. You will never have to worry again." There it was. The tone, the promise spoken with love on the lips and death in the eyes. I picked up the pen deliberately, my hand shaking just enough to sell the performance. I leaned over the papers, letting them believe they had won. Then Vincent spoke too soon. "Once you're gone, everything will be smooth." Joy laughed softly. "Please, Vincent, do not say it like that. We are supposed to wait until after dessert before we talk about her dying." They both laughed, as if I were not sitting right there, as if I were already in the ground. I signed the final page, or rather, I drew a careful line where my signature should have been. Evelyn, seated silently beside me as a witness, nodded slightly. It was time. She placed her hand over mine and whispered 5 words, loud enough for the microphones. "Do you hear that, Franklin?" Before Joy and Vincent could process her meaning, the dining room doors burst open. Uniformed officers flooded inside. Vincent shot to his feet, eyes wide with horror. Joy's smile vanished like it had never existed. I rose slowly from my chair, calm, steady, silent. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in their faces. But that was not the end, because what came out of Joy's mouth next cut deeper than any poison ever could.
As the officers surrounded them, Vincent tried to maintain his composure. "This is a misunderstanding," he insisted. "We were simply talking about end-of-life planning." But Joy did not defend him. She turned to me with fire in her eyes and shouted the words that would forever burn in my memory. "You were never going to give me anything. You were going to live forever and hoard it all until I was old and miserable like you." Everyone froze. Vincent stared at her in disbelief. Even the officers paused. Joy was not crying. She was raging. "All my life you cared more about your business than your own daughter. You built your empire. You earned your millions, and you expected me to stand in your shadow forever. I deserved my share. I deserved your legacy. So yes, I was going to take it." Her voice trembled, not with guilt, but with entitlement. Vincent leaned away from her slowly, as if realizing he had married a viper. I stood motionless, not as a victim, but as a mother who had just learned that her greatest failure was not in business, but in love. The trial took 6 months. Every recording was played, every forged signature displayed, every policy and assassination attempt exposed. Vincent received life in prison without the possibility of parole. Joy's sentence was less severe. She had not physically committed the poisoning, but she was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and financial coercion. When the judge asked if I wished to request leniency for my daughter, I stood slowly. I looked at Joy, who sat in her orange jumpsuit with shackles on her wrists. She did not look ashamed. She only looked impatient, waiting for my answer. I took a deep breath and spoke clearly. I spent my life believing that love was enough to protect a child from greed. I was wrong. My kindness became my weakness. My trust became my vulnerability. I will forgive my daughter in my heart so I can sleep at night, but I will never grant her freedom while I am still alive. Her choices have consequences. Let justice stand. Joy slammed her fist against the table. You are doing this to me? I am your daughter. I met her eyes without blinking. And I am your mother, not your victim. The courtroom fell silent. The judge delivered the sentence. Joy collapsed into her chair, defeated. People expect me to feel victorious, but I do not. Justice does not always feel like triumph. Sometimes it feels like mourning a child who is still alive. I walk through my house now and sometimes ache for the little girl who once held my hand in grocery stores, the child who used to fall asleep in my lap, the daughter who once loved me before money poisoned her soul. But I have learned something powerful. Love must be given freely, but protection must be earned. Family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by loyalty. To anyone listening to my story right now, guard your heart, guard your home, guard your legacy. Sometimes the greatest danger does not come from strangers. Sometimes it comes wearing your last name. If you were in my position, would you have shown mercy? Or would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments below. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share if this story moved you. More true stories are coming, and trust me, the next one will shock you even more.